We had a lively conversation today about performance versus loyalty. It's one I remember from early in my career, where performance reviews weren't really a part of the conversation. The evaluation of performance was more of, did you show up? Did you do your job? Did you not act like a jerk or treat people badly? And if you didn't do anything that was obviously bad, you showed up and did your job, everything was good. And so there was this perhaps unintended culture of loyalty. The conversation we had today, though, was in the context of the employee manual and what happens when things go wrong. And whether you think about what could go wrong or not, it just might. And that was the lively conversation today about who should initiate the conversation. And the shift in the conversation was how, in the ownership conversation, as we own and we interact with people we employ in the company, we really have to do the job to engage people, to ask them if they need support, if something else is going on, without necessarily prying, but asking people about what they need in terms of resources. And I remember what impact it was for me when I was engaged in sort of learning as much as I could, as fast as I could in the company. It really wasn't necessarily people asking me what I needed, but there were a few people who stepped in along the way, and they weren't actually the owners. They were actually people who had been with the company and had been loyal to the company. That loyalty thing again. They'd been loyal to the company, and they noticed what I was trying to do. And some people would have thought about it as insubordination because I did the job I was hired to do, and then I was trying to learn as much as I could in the rest of the day. So those are the good experiences where maybe you could do more to ask people, what else are you seeing? Do we recognize some common understanding of how we can improve or do something better, which is kind of what I was working on. This conversation today was the other side, though, where maybe people are not performing or they're not showing up. And the conversation as an owner where you can say, do you need some kind of a support? Do you need something else? Do you need some time away? Without necessarily prying to say, show me the evidence of why you need the time off, but engaging people. And it really comes down to this idea of engaging people and recognizing that if the whole team isn't aligned, nothing else matters. And so, without necessarily using the word alignment, because it isn't a conversational term, unless perhaps you've read a couple of business books, but in real practice and conversations with people, alignment isn't necessarily something that you're going to use as a word, but engaging people in a conversation when something looks like it's different. It doesn't have to be wrong. When something looks like it's different, taking ownership of that conversation and engaging people to ask what's happening, how are you doing, or do you need something? Do you need something from me? Do you need time away? Is there something good you've seen? Is there something we can do to improve? Really interesting conversation, and just reaffirms this idea that the ownership conversation starts with owning the conversation, not assuming anything, and making performance about real performance and not just about loyalty, not just sitting back and letting things happen. So make sure you get that pen, ask people to read and acknowledge the employee manual, and then live by it every day and make performance part of the culture. Don't rely on loyalty because it just makes people awkward at some point. Whether it's doing good something or bad something, it's going to get awkward unless you have the conversation. So start the conversation now and make it as lively as we had today, and a fun one and productive for everybody. Thanks. Talk to you soon.